I think we are up and running. Oh, let me just modify the mic boom a bit. Like so, and alrighty, there we go. Greetings, fellow Sublime Text Fanatics. OdatNurd here. Welcome to the live stream for August 20th, 2019, the day after the Weird Al concert in Vancouver, which me and my wife went to last night. Had a blast. Currently wearing the official concert T-shirt, and like the old people we are, we had to take the day off because we got in so late. We didn't know what to do with ourselves. I hope the weekend has found you all having a good time. We actually have some plans on what we are going to do in this week's live stream, ramping up towards an impending release of Override Audit version 2.1 with all of the features that we've been working on in the last few streams. And once that happens, we can flip back over to HyperHelp and do some more work there to get that closer to release as well. But I got ahead of myself. Let's do this. Now, as we all know, if you have any questions or comments on the content of this live stream, any of the videos on this channel or on my alternate channel where videos drop every Monday at 9 a.m. Pacific time, link to that in the description. You can go down below this video and drop those in the comment section below, or you can also hit me on Twitter at OdatNurd if you would like to do that as well. And if you want to watch these streams live when they happen, you can subscribe to this channel and get notifications. Streams generally happen every Tuesday at 8 p.m. PST. That's Pacific Standard Time for the West Coast of US and Canada. Next week's stream might be on Monday or it might be skipped. I'm not sure how to schedule that, but next week is my anniversary. And of all the things to be doing on my anniversary, noodling around with Sublime Text in a live stream doesn't seem like necessarily the greatest way to do that sort of thing. But if you want to view a live stream, you can pop into the chat and ask questions there. Just say hi. And even if there are questions that are unrelated to what's currently happening in the stream, we can always skip off and try to find answers to questions together. Now, the things we are going to be working on in tonight's live stream are thus. It's been a while since I've had enough togetherness to actually use the outline to track what it is we're doing. But the first thing we want to do is add a new ignore unknown files setting. Now, of course, that is unknown files are these ones here that have the question mark to the left of them, which means that there's a packet file in the unpacked package folder that exists, but it doesn't exist in the underlying folder and or the underlying Sublime package, and as a result you end up with something like this: two overridden resources and one unpacked resource not in the source package. Now we'll note that for test package, all of the files that exist there that aren't in this package are .git files, because that's a packed package that also has an installed package, and of course installed packages don't have git, so we want to be able to drop those. Now, there may be a couple of ways to do this, and this setting we're going to see how we want that to work. My first thought is, as we can see down in the outline, that it could be a list of my markdown is broken. Well, it's not really markdown, so that doesn't really matter. It should be a backtick right there. The first idea is just a list of regular expressions to match against this. And if those exist, then those match, then we drop this. So here you can see the defaults would be ignoring anything that's in a Git folder, a Subversion folder, or a Mercurial folder. And the regex has to match anchored to the start of the string with a leading literal dot, and that has to be double quoted because, or that has to be a quoted the slash slash and not just a slash because the config file is going to be a JSON file, and JSON slash dot isn't a uh, valid escape character. Now, we could also set this to be true to just turn this feature off entirely, in which case the match would just always say, yes, this matches without ever actually doing anything. The other potential way to do this, and I can't remember off the top of my head, but I believe we would say um, glob, glob.glob, file.glob, that opens off screen, but I'll drag the tab over like so. Um, The glob.glob method returns a possibly empty list of path names that match, which must be a string containing a path specification. It can either be absolute or relative. So one thing that we could do here, theoretically, now as far as I know, um, this actually looks at the content of the disk to see if files match. You can't necessarily pass it a list of strings. I looked at some Stack Overflow answers where people were trying to do that sort of thing. Because it might be nice to have a setting that was just, dot git slash star and it would match everything that matches that. I'm not sure if that's how glob works. But also, I think at a previous stream we did some work trying to do something like that by not going into directories, and it was a little tricky to pull this list in a way that that wasn't happening, which is why it's not doing that up to now. I kind of like the idea of the regular expressions. Um, if for no other reason, then this report has to do a lot of work in order to know if there is an override, we have to know all of the contents of a directory on disk to be able to compare it, which is why we know that these files don't appear in it. The other files in this package do appear in it, so they don't appear in this, the same way that only the python.sublime build file in the Python package is unpacked, but there are many packages and files in the shipped version of that package. We have to scan the hard drive to be able to pull that information. So the idea of then also going back one more time to scan it again to see what things we don't have in here. Probably not a performance concern, but I'm an old fuddy-duddy. I was talking to my neighbor the other day, as a matter of fact, about how I have been programming back since the days of when, if you had a Commodore 64, you were a pretty neat guy, and how everybody was writing code that needed to be small and tight and fast and highly optimized because computers weren't very fast. And there's a bit of a tendency in the industry to have less concern about that under the theory that the compiler will optimize my code, or the operating system is going to have the directory information cached in memory from the prior scan, so it'll be really fast to pull again, to there's probably not a lot of files in any given package most of the time, so it's probably not a big deal, to even something like the computers are really fast, they have a lot of RAM, who cares? None of those arguments really, do it for me. So I'd really like, if we were to do something like that, to do it in a way where as we find files, as we're scanning, we're able to determine if they do or do not match some arbitrary list and just not have them stored at all or something like that. That's got its own items. Maybe you want to know what files you're ignoring, but you're not ignoring. Anyway, so that's why for now I think we're going to go that route. And once we finish that, we're going to try to pull off a contextual create override, which is something I believe I talked about in the last stream. But here, if we say create override and say we picked default add line before, we get this buffer, which is currently transient, but it knows what its path is. We can edit it. We can undo the mini diff indicator in the gutter tracks what this file looked like before we started modifying it, or more specifically, changes based on the underlying file. So we can use the built-in keyboard shortcuts to display the mini diff, navigate between changes, revert changes back to the way they were, like so. That's all well and good. That was add line before. But imagine we instead used view package file and did add line before like so. And we had this file. This is currently read only, but let's say that when we had this, we might want to right click on this and just have an option in here that says create override. That would be neat, and because you would automatically take this file that's being opened by view package file and do the same stuff that that other command did, basically without being prompted, which will require a little bit of refactoring. And then the last thing that I'm thinking about doing, I think would be a good idea, is this. The way this works right now, again, when we do, if we do, actually, let's describe it this way. If we say package resource viewer, open resource, and we picked default add line before, what we get is it opens the file. What it's actually doing is creating a buffer and then pasting the contents in. So right away we can see that the mini diff says that the entire file has changed. And if we turned on the this, we'd see that this used to be nothing. So all of these lines have been added. Not entirely useful when you're making modifications. Also, the cursor starts at the bottom of the file and not at the top of the file. And if I undo the command insert content, which was used to put that stuff in there, so I'd have to redo it. I don't like any of that stuff. It smacks of poor usability to me, and it's really the thing about undoing going too far has annoyed me for several years now. When you accidentally go too far and then you have to remember to redo back one to get the file. The other stuff really only came to a head very recently when the mini diff functionality was added, and probably package dev will be, or package resource viewer will be updated for that. But when we do override audit or create override here and do the same thing, the file ends up, as I said, with the cursor at the top. And so I like the idea of that, but I also like the idea of being able to view package file, a file to find the one you want and then be like, yeah, okay, I see how that works. I'd really like to change that. And then instead of having to manipulate the thing, you could just go here and pick create override, which is also nice because if you don't know, for example, whoops, snippets, can't type. A lot of the shipped packages have snippets in a directory named snippets, as we can see here, but not all packages will do something like that. My user package, for example, has snippets in lowercase. Other packages might have snippets in a folder that's not snippets. There's no set rhyme or reason to this. Sublime just picks any Sublime snippet file out of a package and uses it. And some packages might even have multiple levels of snippets in here. I think if we even did package dev like so, there's a snippets for the build system and for preferences and and so on and so forth. So if you were using package resource viewer, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. What did I do? I made that mad is what I did. If I used, oh, I see. No, that's okay. You keep going. Package resource viewer, excuse me. If I wanted something from package dev, well, then I have to know what package it is in order to find the snippets to know about the mouse binding. It's a lot easier to use the other functionality. So I think being able to do that from here would be quite handy. So those are the things we're going to try to do tonight. And if those are all done, then we are primed to drop our first version of Override Audit 2.1 after some more testing, of course. So the first thing we want to do is we want to, what I didn't do in this outline was outline all of the variety of steps that would be needed in order to pull this off, but I think we've done this before. We're going to need to add a setting that has a default and document it, and then pull that setting at the appropriate locale and do something with it. So the first thing we're going to do is have a big swig of coffee so we can get rolling here. As always, tonight's coffee is brought to you by me. I made the coffee myself. I'm my own sponsor. It's a good time. So let's see. We are in override audit. Oh, actually, another thing we might want to do is remove this settings proxy. I guess we actually still need to leave that because we have legacy code. No, no, we don't. Basically, settings proxy isn't a command that you can be used to do what the edit settings command does. It only makes itself visible when certain versions of Sublime are listed, as we see here. That's because some packages, like for example, Override Audit and others, Sublime is not an example of one. Package dev is, you pick settings, you get it in a split window, like so. That's the quote unquote new way to do this. The older way to do this is to do something like Sublimerge does, where there's settings default and settings user, and you have to pick one or the other. This one shows you the defaults, this one shows you yours. Override Audit is actually cool enough to have these menu items set so that under versions of Sublime where the split is available, it'll open it the new way, but on older versions, it presents the user in the default like that. And now that we have a version restriction that makes older versions of Sublime no longer work in Sublime in Override Audit version 2, we could actually remove this proxy. That's less of a keen thing. It's not really adding anything per se. That's just one of those things. Um, we want to look at OA setting like so. And this is where we're going to get a default. And we're going to say that, what did I call that setting? I called it ignore unknown overrides, which is what we're going to call it. And it's going to have dot, we're going to automatically ignore files in a Git repository. Maybe we might even pull this out like this. Makes that look a little nicer. Files in a .subversion directory, which I don't really think is a thing. And Mercurial as well, which I don't actually use. There might be others, like for example, there may be a CVS directory. Let's not get too crazy here. We'll add a comma there. So that adds that so that there's a default value for that setting. Now we're going to copy that. And we are going to go to override settings and resources settings like so. Zoom that up. And we're going to drop this to here. That's got to have a comma on the end. Let's whim those back like so. Okay. What would we call this? When generating an override or bulk diff report, override audit can show you files that exist in the unpacked version, in the unpacked packages folder that don't exist in the Sublime package file, which are known as unknown overrides. This setting controls whether, whoops, spell checking on. Yeah. Sublimerge, those are all spelling errors that I can live with. This setting controls whether those files are displayed at all, and if they are, which should not be displayed at all due to not being interesting. The setting can be set to, what did I say it could be set to? True to ignore all files that are unknown. Can be set to true to disable this functionality completely. or a list of one or more regular expressions which, if matched on the name, oops, should not be displayed, like so. Okay, let's save that. So that's the default value of that setting. And let's open merge here, shall we? To open this repository. So what files do we have here? We have in the core, in the actual function that, we can zoom that up a bit, in the default settings, we have a value that looks like that. And in the actual file, we have a setting that looks the same and is commented as appropriate. So let's go ahead and stage that, and we will say, oh, should we create a new branch for this? Nah, then it'll make it trickier to do the other stuff. Add in new setting for ignoring unknown overrides, and I won't force you to watch me typing that part out. I come back later and amend these commits as appropriate for that. So now there is a setting for that. So now we have to actually be able to use this setting in some fashion. So we're going to copy that. And now here comes the real question for this thing. Zoom that back. Whereabouts? Okay, package pop-up. We're not worried about that. We're not worried about the default metadata. Can't remember if I didn't show this in a stream, did I? Very basically, for packages that ship with Sublime, we're tracking the actual package that they came from and providing a description for them so that instead of saying nothing, it shows you information about that package. Here, the version of this package is unknown because it's a complete override, but here the version is 3208 because that's the build of Sublime that I'm currently running, and it's the default language support for that. And if we did it on the actual default package, this is the package that provides core Sublime Text functionality. And if you look in a package report, it also says your user package is unversioned and it has a metadata for that. And of course, as we know, these things let you skip back and forth like so. This works slightly different under Windows. That's something I might have to look into. And things of that nature. There's also default metadata information that's applied to dependencies that don't have their own information in there. That still works and that still works, right? Yeah, beauty. Okay, so we don't care about that package. We might care about that. Get rid of the metadata. We can open the help again if we need it. We don't need to scratch Python buffer. It's not an event. It might be the core. Definitely not a settings proxy kind of thing. We can get rid of that. We're going to leave that for the time being. Oh, this is the metadata information I created. So let's go ahead and close that without saving. Now, in override reports and in bulk diffs is where this information is applied. So I could do, like, for example, that and that, and we can see that information there. Now, there's two ways to go here. One is we could mask unknown files from appearing but still count them, or we could drop them completely if we're telling it to ignore them, and then that count would change. Basically, what that might mean is for this, one way that if we mask them but still count them, then this would say there are 23 unpacked resources not in the source package, but it wouldn't show you what they are. And the other way to do that would for it to be to not say that there are any if you don't see any. And for testing purposes, I cloned the repository for the latest version of Override Audit on my Windows machine where there is an installed package. So every file in the repository shows up in this thing. All the Git files show up as unknown. All the source files show up as overrides that mostly are not the same. There are two other files. There's a git ignore and a git attributes file, which, as we can see right here in the sidebar, are part of the package. They're part of the code, but they're not part of the Sublime package file because the git attributes file actually drops them and the GitHub directory as well from being in the package, which makes those things show up in this report. Even and you might actually want to see those and you just don't want to see this. So I'm not sure. I think because the ignore overrides in setting, this one here, just like, for example, doesn't mention anything at all about, I guess I'm gonna have to open the package report for that, for submerge. And this is generic, so that's probably not the case. If we look here and hover it over Submerge 3, it says it may contain overridden resources. To check, view the override report. Actually, this won't show up in the override report because it's in my particular setting to ignore that. That's, neither here nor there. That might be something that would be nice to tweak. We can do that in a 2.1.1 just to have something going. So I guess what we want to do is look at report, override report thread, override audit diff report, override audit override report. Let's look at this one first. This is the override report thread, jumps up to here. Ignore empty, something that you can turn on and off, I guess. Okay. I already forgotten that I had done that, to be perfectly honest. What does this even do? Oh, right. That's empty overrides, not the other thing. So we output a package as possible. Unknown overrides is package info.unknown override files. That's where unknown overrides comes from. That's over here. So everywhere this is called has possible overrides. If it's not none, return that. So we actually make it a set. I see. Hang on here. The simplest way to pull this off would be to modify this method call in the package info class. So it comes up with unknown overrides is the items from the override list that aren't in the base list, which comes up with the files that it doesn't know what they are. So if we were to make a new set out of the unpacked contents and filter them so that they, for items that don't match the regular expression, then everything that uses this would just immediately be peeled away. Now the question there is, that's the easiest way to implement the change. Is there any case in which we might want to know that there are unknown overrides that aren't being displayed? In which case it can't happen here because this is providing the core of the information. And by that I mean, if we wanted to, just off the top of my head, have a button that says there's this many unknown overrides, but you can only see 5 of them. Do you want to see what the other 25 are? The only way to know that that's the case is for the code that generates the pop-up or that generates the report to be able to know all of the unknowns and then do the filtering itself so it knows what it's actually displaying, and then it could display that disparity. In that case, it has to happen outside of package info. If it's good enough for us to just say we were told to ignore that, so just ignore it, then that's not how we would pull that off, right? So there's that. Now I'm thinking, check that out. Yeah. I have a setting already in here, and it might even be, I can't remember where exactly it occurs, for binary files. Set binary pattern, like so. Sets the list of file patterns that should be considered to be binary during a diff. So we tell this what it thinks should be the binary files, so that when you generate one of these diff reports, these files say that they're not in the package, so they can't be diffed. If there were any binary files in here, like a PNG file, it just says file is binary, not diffing. That's how that gets set. So I kind of like the idea of using that here as well. Where is set binary pattern actually used in here? It's used in the diff report on 67. So we would say diff report 67, like so. Okay, so yeah, as it's doing it, it has to set that in. Okay. I gotta admit, I like the idea of doing it this way. I think I did it this way partially just so that it was easier to do, but also because we get that ability. If this code is responsible for doing it, but only if we tell it to do it instead of it doing it on its own, then I think that works a lot better. So we might say def set unknown ignore patterns self pattern list, like so. Okay. Set the list of regular, well, I can't type. Regular, let's do that. Expressions, did my keyboard move? There we go. Set the list of regular expressions that match unknown overrides that the user has stated they don't want to be warned about. Any override that matches one of these regular expressions will not be returned as an unknown override in that method call. The default is to do no filtering at all. So all unknown overrides will be displayed. Note that the diff happens to, no, we'll leave that part out. Okay, so this is just as easy enough to say self dot, what was the name of that setting? Ignored unknown ignore pattern equals pattern, no, pattern list. Okay. Now I think that means for here, this would be self dot, oh crap, I already forgot what that was. Unknown ignore pattern. So copy that, come back here. This defaults to empty. Now another reason to do this is that we want these regular expressions to be compiled to make that a little bit nicer. Okay, so I think that seems to have loaded. So what we have now is a set unknown ignore patterns key, and like so, we can call set unknown ignore patterns and do something with it. So now if we look at unknown override files, that's just an empty set. Now, I believe unpacked content would be let's do this, 717. The contents of the unpacked package, which I believe would be actually scanning. Yeah. But once it's being gathered, it doesn't get gathered again, so that's nicer. Um, Otherwise, it has to scan. If it's a directory that you gave it, it scans the directory. Otherwise, it returns the contents of the zip file. Okay, so now, oh, I forgot to check. What does this actually return? That's the thing I was actually going for there. Get package contents returns what one of these two things returns. So we might say this. It's a package file set. So I can't remember how exactly that works. I think it's just yeah, it's a take on immutable set that knows how to do cool stuff. Okay, so filtered list equals something. And then instead of over list, this is filtered list. Okay, sorry. Now we leave that alone. If self dot is this the name of that thing? Have I already forgotten? Unknown ignore patterns? Yeah, okay. If there's actually a list of unknown ignore patterns, then we're going to do something here. And that something involves filtering the list and setting it back into override list. So filtered equal, oh, can I do this? Yeah. Filtered is equal to package file set. Okay. And then over list is equal to filtered. Just as a test of this thing, which means if that was in place, if we refresh this, anything exciting happen there? If we reload that, we reload. I guess I need an override report. So those still show. I'm not sure. Does that does it make end up making? Hmm. Oh, that's right. It's not actually getting in here because I'm not actually setting the pattern, right? Smooth. Okay. So what was the thing called? Gotta be smarter, boys. Gotta be smarter than this. Set on. We're actually in override report. Now this iterates over that. If package name is not in the ignored, and if it outputs anything, then say we displayed something. So I guess we'd say package info dot set unknown ignore patterns Bob. Just for lack of anything better. Okay, now if we looked here in the bulk diff, anything? No. Anything here? Oh. Package info object has no attribute. Did I put that in the wrong place? Or is this just not reloading the way I think it should? Maybe that's part of my problem. This is package info, is it not? Yeah. Oh, I spelled it wrong. Set. Good gravy. Maybe I didn't recover from that concert as much as I thought I did. How about that? All right. All right, they show up as okay, that's I think what I would expect. They're files in the directory, so they count as overrides now, I think. Previously, this wouldn't have happened because it wouldn't have called unknown overrides to get anything, and because we're not trimming anything out of this list, that's why nothing's happening there. So let's work this a little bit better. Ignore overrides in, and skip unknown, ignore away setting. Wonder why I didn't get any autocomplete for that thing, because it seems like I should have. And the setting that we added was named ignore unknown overrides, like so. So we're going to grab that value. Now, we need to actually modify this. Those are going to be regular expressions. So what happens if I said re.compile? Is there a way to get re.compile to, does it throw an exception is the question? Let's see. Say to compile. I guess not. I guess if it was sort of like unbalanced parentheses, so that will actually toss an error. So we need to be able to. Okay, that's good to know. Huh. What's the nice way to handle that, I wonder? Whatever we do here, we're going to have to do in more than one place. So, well, let's get it working first, and then we can work that part out. Huh? How about that as a plan? The idea being maybe OA settings should recognize this setting and do the compile on its own, or maybe it could, when it loads the setting, compile those things and return that value back as a default or some such. Unknown ignored. What would be unknown ignored is equal to an empty list. Well, maybe we might even say it that way. Can't remember how we're doing that in other places. I assume like this. I don't actually know. We'll color good enough. We're going to do that. And then we're going to say for regex in. Oh, we're actually going to come up here also and say import re like so. For regex in this. Try catch e. No, sorry, wrong language. Except e. What was it actually? Except e. Yeah. Boo plus e dot message. Yeah, just that. Stir e. Exception e, because I don't actually know what it provides. Unknown ignored dot add. Is add a thing you can do with the list? No, it's append, isn't it? I always get those mixed up. There we go. Append re dot compile regex. Okay. What's that do? Get real mad, huh? Is that how you do that now? Oh, it's broken forever and a day because it didn't compile one time. All right, that seems to be all okay now. Print unknown ignored. Whoa, a dependency just updated. How exciting is that? Oh, I broke it. It's OA setting, not OS setting. OA setting. There we go. Interestingly, I only discovered that because it updated what? Terminus. There's a new build of Terminus. Whee! Reload that. Okay. And then we come back to this report. And when I hit the key, we see a bunch of regex patterns in there. Swank as all get out. Now, just for testy purposes, can I do override audit settings like so? And say we maybe want this to go over here. And we'll add this comment as well, because I like to do that in my settings so that I know how they work, even though, you know, hover over the thing and package dev shows you. If I did that, okay, so that setting is in there now. So if we have to watch the status line here, it says boo unbalanced parentheses. Okay, so good. That's kind of what we want. We would actually want to log that and not do it that way. Is log used in this thing at all? Yes. Log. Ignore unknown overrides. Contains broken regex. RE. Message. Let's type it this way. Invalid. Whoa! Crap on a cracker. There. Invalid. Ignore. Unknown override regex bang, and that dot format. Yeah, it's gonna go long, but what are you gonna do? Oh, actually, I don't even have to do that, do I? I can just say re equals regex and message equals stir e. Forget how to use my own log method, you know? Okay. Let's see what that does when I hit it. Log on an unexpected keyword argument re. Is that not how that works? I forgot how my log method works. It's been too long. Yeah, that's not helpful. Okay. Whoa, well, I'm doing it's all stupid like. Oh wait, do I not have maybe I'm thinking of yeah, okay. Okay. I already forgot where we were there. I guess in this one. %s, %s, and then that looks like that, and that looks like that. Those might even actually just fit on this line for all I know, but there we go. How about that? Okay. I have so many different versions of that. I should really settle on one. Invalid, ignore override, bloop, unbalanced parenthesis. Okay, and now did that display in the status message? No, it didn't, right? Because we need to remember that status equals true is something that we should pass there. But I don't know that it would actually even show up, but we'll do it anyway. Status equals true. Just because of that whole something else is happening in the status message. Yeah, that's not too bad. Okay. So with that out of the way, I can fix this like thus. Okay. So that just goes back to the way it was. We don't need to print unknown ignored because we know it's got the value we want. We're capturing errors. Again, this is something that should actually be handled elsewhere, maybe a new method for the thing or something. And the idea here is to compile these once before it skips through doing all of this stuff. Just because regular expressions are a little bit faster when they're precompiled, and the re.match thing only remembers like the last one or two, whatever that thing said. The compiled versions of the most recent patterns to match, search, or compile are cached. So if you only use a few at a time, you don't need to worry about compiling them. Here we're using at least 3, and it's going to go 1, 2, 3, then go to the next package and go 1, 2, 3 all the way through. And I don't think it remembers that many. So unknown ignored is what we would pass to that. So now this, we'll do a little bit of that. And we come back to here and say is there a continue? I'm not sure what the most Pythonic way to pull this off is. If there's a list of ignored patterns, then we want to do this. And more specifically, if the list is non-empty. Maybe. O for O in overlist if r.match O for O, whoops, for are in self dot unknown ignore patterns. Is that a thing that actually works? I'm not 100% sure. Unbounded local variable are referenced before assignment. Huh. All right. Well, let's do it unpacked. We can always come back. For pattern in self dot unknown ignore patterns. If, man, you know, really having a hard time concentrating tonight. What's the, let's do this. Maybe we do something like this. Python check if string matches list of regex pattern. I have a list of regexes in Python and a string. Is there an elegant way to check if at least one regex in the list matches the string? By elegant, I mean something better than simply looping through all of the regexes and checking them against the string and stopping if a match is found. Yeah, that's what I wasn't sure why I didn't want to do that. Make a regex that matches if any of our regexes match. This method doesn't work if there's more than 100 regexes. Okay. Any. Crap, why didn't I not think of that? Okay, that is potentially brilliant. If not any... Well, actually, we wouldn't do it that way, would we? How is it? Oh, close this thing. There's the list of regexes. Regex.match for regex in regexes. Okay, so it has to loop over the patterns, but yeah. Pattern.match. Oh, I guess I gotta loop over the stupid list of override things, don't I? For resource in over list. If not any pattern.match resource for pattern in self.unknown ignore patterns. Filtered dot add. Can't remember if that's how that works. Resource, okay. Like so. That's one way to go about it, I suppose. That seems to do something. What does this thing do? Not a hell of a lot. Let's close that one for the time being. Turn off the sidebar. Maybe we can see these two things side by side. Actually, I think what I want here is a bulk diff of this thing because it uses the same. One overridden package resource, one potentially expired. Oh, maybe it is sort of kind of doing something. 23 unpacked resources not in the source package. Reload that. 23 unpacked resources not in the okay, well, that's not going to work, I guess, because we're not actually doing it in that stupid thing. We're doing it in this one. Crap. Let's log what we're doing here. adding that. It says what it's adding. So I guess self dot unknown ignore pat equals an empty list just for the temporary time being. Okay, so it's definitely actually kind of doing what we want. I guess it should be adding them to the base list for the purposes of this. Oh, all right. So we don't even need to do that. Base list. Okay. That seems like a nice hack. And that seems to work, and well, I thought it seemed to work. Oh, I guess we want it to be the opposite way now. No? Oh, right, because, boy, kind of does what we want. Get the list of files that exist in the unpacked package, but not in the packed package. This implies the override type is simple and will return the empty set. Oh, we can't screw with that set because it's... right. I see. Maybe something like that. I think what the problem is. No? If you can't have possible overrides, just return an empty set. If we don't want to see unknown overrides. Oh, right. It caches the value. Once it's determined the value, it doesn't do it again. It gets the list of the contents of the Sublime package file, then it gets the list of unpacked files. So if I'm thinking about this correctly, if there is any, for every resource in the list of files that we think are overrides. Oh. For every one of those, search for each one of those. If any of the patterns match, then if they match, we should be ignoring it, right? So we should actually be saying removing. And we'll do nothing for that for the time being. So the idea is to get this to say that it is removing certain files like so. So it's removing, yeah, I had that backwards in my head the whole time. So the real question becomes, do it this way, Python remove item from set. I just need to know what the thing is. Remove. Set changed size during iteration. Right. So we want a duplicate. Filtered equals package file set based on the override list. And then we could say filtered.remove resource. Say we're, whoops. say we're removing it, and then over list equals filtered, like so. That seems to work. Print over list, print base list. Let's do that, because there may have been actually more changes to this than I had thought. Oh, crikey almighty. If self.name equals test package, do this. Okay, so remove blah, blah, blah. So now the only things that it should consider overrides are that and the base list. This only contains a main menu and a README. Print over list minus base list, which is what this would actually return. Whoops. Yeah, the list should be empty. So why is it coming up with those? What did I do when I unknown override detection? I added that. There's a syntax for it. There's a syntax for it. Unknown files. I don't remember, and I don't see making a change to how files are detected to know that those aren't overrides. What would the current build of override audit do for this case? Am I just stupidly doing something here? Let's try this. Open a terminal. That's not a terminal. Open a terminal and do that, and then that. Install a new sandbox for 3208 and do that. And then we would say install package, and the package we want to install is override audit. If it wants to download override audit, like so, it's now installed. So we're going to quit that for just a second. We're going to go to data installed packages and I'll go to config Sublime Text 3 installed packages. Test package goes here, and home config Sublime Text 3 packages. Test package goes here, like so. Okay, and then if I said override report, all I see is that, because that's the only override that's actually in there. The Git directory is in there, I would imagine, but for some reason, we're not seeing it in the override report here. Packages, not wrong one. There's the .git directory, and there's your README. So Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff in there. So why does this not display it and the other thing does? Let's quit that and quit that. Go back to this thing again. Again, unknown override detection. Now let's just go ahead and see what we changed here. We changed the changelog. In the context menu, we removed it. That's confusing. Yeah, okay. In here, there's a new setting. Unknown overrides equals none. Get the list of files that exist in the unpacked package, but not in the packed package. So the list is initially none, but calling this sets it to be something. And that's all that's done there. There's a syntax to be able to tell when it appears in the report. There's a new syntax test for it. The diff override command, we have to be able to know when an override is unknown to know whether or not commands exist for it. That doesn't change how it's injected. Now we have a list of unknown files, which we pass to output package. In process, we add that to the settings. And we output a package. We get the list of unknown override files for that package. And output overrides. We get package files. We used to say expired if only expired else package file. So whatever we pass to output overrides, what is this doing? Used to be one item. If the item is in the list of expired items, that would tend to make me think that the list of files that appear to be overrides pop out. But it didn't change that, right? If I bring this back, this is a real intriguing problem, I gotta say. Unknown override files. That's the filtered override list. Oh, okay. So the first thing we get is the original list. Okay, and we'll even say this, O. Then this one is going to be the new filtered one. This is the base. And this is unknown. Oops. Okay. Stir object has no attribute over list. What did I do? Oh, crap on a cracker. There we go. Okay. Stir. Oh, that's a different problem. Okay. There. How about that? Debugging is hard sometimes. The list of overrides includes all of the Git files. It doesn't seem right somehow. Then the filtered list is just README. The base files is that. So the un is that. Yeah, so The problem is that those files show up as override files from unpacked contents. You know, unpacked contents of a package. Okay. From override audit .lib .packages import package info. P equals package info test package. Does that do something? P dot override files. We just get the one. Is this remembering something from a previous run that it shouldn't? No. Why is it doing that? Arguably, demonstrably, the list of override files in that package is just README. The other files aren't there. And whoop, that's the wrong place. Okay, we're gonna remove that. We're gonna remove that. We're gonna remove that. And we're going to inject self.name and self.unknown override. Unknown overrides, like so. Okay. So if I do this, test package doesn't show any unknown overrides. But yet they still show up in that thing. So there might be something wrong with the override report. So what do we have here? Because that seems to be exactly what we would expect to see. And that thing should be calling override files. So it should be that if I did it again, oops, not that one, this one. One of the things we see, test package, none. Oh, so I guess I gotta do something like this. O and U, like this. Okay, maybe there's an order of operations going on here. For test package, the list of overrides is none. That's obviously, so obviously wrong. Oh, I see, because I did that stupid. It should be this. Okay. How about that? Maybe if we put the debug information correctly. We know, oh boy, a lot of stuff in Erlang, huh? The list of overrides in Erlang is, for some reason, all of them in a way that I don't understand. That's a complete override. The list of unpacked files, but not that also are contained in the, but there's no test package. O and U. So where the booger is it getting these stupid things from? I don't understand. Okay. Let's just really look at this thing. Override report thread. Generate a report on all packages which have overrides. Get a list of packages. Only expired is that and that. I'm going to pull this down here. Just because. So we're going to say for every package in the package list, if the list is not ignored, give it the regex list. And if we outputted anything, display 1. If we displayed nothing, it was empty. Otherwise, set the content. So we're calling set output package like so, which is this thing down here. Has possible overrides, has the normal overrides, expired. Okay. No need to do anything if there are no overrides at all. Only expired and not expired. Okay. If unknown overrides. Okay. %s, unknown %s, and we're going to mod that to packageinfo.name and unknown overrides. Let's see what that does when we hit this report. That's the override diff report. We want this one. It, what, doesn't output anything? Makefile unknown sample.txt. Test package. It doesn't have any. So it's not hitting that. And then we output overrides. So we jump to here. Print item. Oh, sorry. %n item, %s, bang. Package. Oh, I don't know the name of this stupid package now. Well, in that case, I guess we'll just say item. And okay, now if we do this, they certainly seem to be items. Expired if only expired, else package files. So where does package files come from? Unpacked contents. Okay, it all becomes clear. The override report. I see. I guess what we're trying to do doesn't actually work. Unless we did it in a different place. The problem is twofold here. We have the complete list of every unpacked file and then the files that we think are unknown overrides, and it's either in one of those two. So this is a lot more complicated than I originally thought it was going to be perfectly honest, because if it's not in package files, if that's what it's iterating over, then it works. It can never be expired if it's not in the underlying package, because it's not considered an override in that case. So I guess theoretically we need to remove files from here and not from here. So that change I made totally does nothing. I guess it's a way to check that. That needs to be, I guess it could be a list. It doesn't, it's going to be iterated here. Crap on a cracker. Okay, what do we got in here per se? So we added that. We added the setting. We didn't change anything here. So if I comment out that, and that, and that, and that, yeah, comment out that one. So all of that is gone now. Now the report, when we look at it, should break, right? Because that doesn't actually have that attribute anymore. Now, if we came through here, we comment out that, and I'll leave that one in. We do want that. We do want that. We don't want that. Okay, so now the report should be back to the way it was before. Those are the items, or the list of things that it's actually injecting into the report. Okay, so we could also do that. Now, the real trick here in that case, I guess, is swap those to be unknown, ignore patterns. Let's just call it that. Okay. It's going to do it once. And then the list of package files is in output package. So this needs to be passed here, which means in output package, wherever we call that, we also need to say it here, or more appropriately here, I guess, like so. So that still compiles. Move that up and say package files equals R for R in package info dot unpacked packages, if not any, that thing that we did over here, which I already forget, but commented it out. Here's my mouse cursor. Oh, it jumped way off the screen. I see. There we go. That, and close that. P dot match for P in ignore patterns and remove the self. So every resource in the unpacked contents of the package, if none of the this isn't, should be an R. Should be an R. if none of the regexes match it. Okay, so we do that. Does that do what we want over here? None type object is not iterable. Huh. Well, I wasn't expecting that. Maybe order is important here. That's the way it looked before, so no. Package info. Oh, is that not the appropriate? That's exactly what it was doing before, right? It used to be something that's not that. Well, we'll just go to smurge then, shall we? Because that diff leaves a lot to be desired. Whoops. Oh, I hate when they do that. It used to be package info dot unpacked contents, and now it's wrapped with R for R in blah, if not any. P dot match R for P in ignore patterns. So print unpacked contents and print ignore patterns. And turn that off because that's sort of annoying. Okay, what does that do for us? We're going to crack this nut yet. Oh, unpack. Somehow, because there might not be unpacked contents. So it's hard to do that in all one thing, huh? Okay, so this looked like package files equals package info dot unpacked contents, like that. And well, how did we actually have that before? It's actually lined up. Okay. If package files is not none, then this. Maybe that'll do what we want. There. Sample.txt still appears, but that doesn't. Okay, well, that was a hard fought hour and a half or hour. A little bit of a wrong track there. I wouldn't have thought that I so totally got wrong how that actually works, but okay. I did just that. Came back over to here. Now the git should come back, but sample.txt and those two should go away. Whoops, that's not the reload thing. Huh. Those are still there, but now those ones come back. Why is that the case? Did that generate any errors? No. X equal import re dot compile x r equals re dot compile text r dot match sample dot text. No, huh? Commit. I'm not. Why doesn't that regular expression match? Did I not compile these with the appropriate option? Modified by specing. Oh. Perform case insensitive matching. I don't know that we want that. Dot all makes the dot match any character, including a new line. Verbose. No. If 0 or more characters at the beginning of string match the regular expression, return a corresponding match object. At the beginning of a string match. Scan through string looking for a location where the regular expression pattern produces a match and return a corresponding match object. So I should be using re.search. I guess it's the magic of that. Okay, I can do that. The texts went away and the gets came back. Okay. Oh, that's probably doing a little more like what we want. So you got to be very special with your regex. Now, I guess the real question is, does it still work this way? Yes. Cool. Now, just as a test, go back to the console, package, test package, touch, sample.md. Say. Sample.md does show up in the list. And if I was to touch minus d equals 20 years ago, sample.md like so that looks like it has a date of 2000 or 1999. That's still just unknown. Okay, so that's good. I think that's doing what we want for that particular action, which means we don't need any of the stuff that we added to the packages thing per se. Which I guess, still makes sense. We don't want that. We don't want that. You can always put this stuff back. We know what it is. Again, it would be nice if it was handled in here, but maybe it makes sense not to do that because it's a special case to want to do this sort of thing. We have to pass that there. Yeah. Now here's the real crux of the terribleness here. Resource file names are case sensitive on Linux. They're not case sensitive on Windows. So should this regular expression be case insensitive in cases where the file system can be case insensitive? In order to detect it, okay, path instead of a. If platform is Linux, else. Okay, so this assumes that Linux is always using a case-sensitive file system. Pass inside of a zip uses a Unix path, which causes problems under Windows because partial file names from package don't match. This can be fixed by using. So the real regular expression should be case sensitive on Linux, but not on the other systems, I think would be the takeaway from that. Equals, oh, what was the thing called? re dot ignore case. Like that. Does that do a thing? Let's save that. Does it still do a thing? Okay, so right now, if I went into this, change this to this, regenerate this, those files appear because it doesn't match the regular expression. And then I go to this and say that. So when I generate the report, the Git files go away. If sublime.platform equals Linux, else 0. So now, like so, that should really have oh, maybe I did that thing I did last time. Let's look at the code. The options are ignore. Oh, is not equal to. I'm sorry. Let's do it. No, let's do it the other way. Zero if Sublime platform is Linux, else ignore case. So now those don't match because the regex is not what we expect. But if it looked like that, then that would work. Now, this doesn't fix all of the problems with this code because that could be not a list. So we need to work upon that situation too, and then I think we are good to go. Let us work on something in the core. Because we pull stuff from the core in here, don't we? Yeah. We can also import RE here, like this. And we can always take that out if we don't need it. Log syntax setting can diff externally. How do we want to pull this? Def something, and we would say this. That and all of this, I think, is what we're looking at here. Oh, if I'm going to do it that way, I guess I got to do this too, don't I? Otherwise, it'll get all weird and doolally on me. Okay, so. Oh, that's not the one I wanted. We would say something like this. Okay. Pattern list equals this. And then we get that, and let's say that for regex in pattern list. Change ignore patterns to just patterns. It's an empty list. Append log appears in this thing, so that shouldn't be any particular special. Get ignore unknown patterns is what we're going to call this. And we're going to say, as we document it, fetch the value of the setting that tells us what unknown overrides we should ignore in reports. The return is either a list of compiled regular expressions, which can be empty, oh, I don't have to say that. It's either a list. We don't have to say it's either a list of that or something. If ignore unknown is nothing, then the return is a list of compiled regular expressions, which may be empty. In which case, that value doesn't necessarily have to be false in that case, right? It could just be an empty list if you just want to see all ignored. Oh, actually, that goes the other way, doesn't it? The setting can be true to disable this completely, or a list of one or more regular expressions, which, if matched on the name of an override, should not be displayed. So, yeah. In that case, I think there's two ways to go about this. We could return a list of just a compiled regular expression that matches dot so that everything matches, or we could have a sentinel value of like true. But then that requires the other part knowing. Okay. If is instance pattern list bool. What would we do here? If you said true for that value, it should return a list of, okay, return re.compile dot if pattern list else that. Is that so? If it's a Boolean and the value was true for ignore, oh, sorry, that goes the other way. If not pattern list else that. So I think if we look again at the comment, set this value to true to disable this functionality completely. Okay, so the setting can be set to true to disable this functionality at all. So it just never displays any of them ever. So if it's set to true, oh sorry, then I guess that was right, yeah. If the Boolean is set to true, then the list is a list of the single regular expression that just matches a single any character. And then it's done. Otherwise, it returns an empty list. Otherwise, it does this. So let's print bool short. in ignored list pattern. And otherwise, we do this. Return patterns. Okay. Shoot. We want it to look like that. My bad. Okay. Only be case sensitive on Linux where the file system is case sensitive. Okay, that's a good reminder for that. That seems to load. Now we can call get ignore unknown patterns as long as we, in the override report, instead of doing that, say this. Then get rid of that. So now we can call this. So we are saying ignore patterns is equal to get ignore unknown patterns, like that. And then we don't need that or any of that business. And this could be tightened up nicely as well to make it a one-liner, but we'll worry about that in a second. So now, with that loaded, this should still do what it did before, right? Test package has that. I'm going to, just for sanity's sake, pull this file out, close this window, and drop this over here so we can fiddle with it to our heart's content. So if I did that, then we see all of the files. If the value of this was set to false, then we get that same action there. And if this was set to true, that one and those ones should disappear. And that is a little okay. Yeah, that is not what we want. Okay, so yeah, that needs to be a little bit smarter. So let us go back to the drawing board on this. We need, let's say we need that first, and then, first of all, let's come back to here. If it's a Boolean, then just return pattern list, let's say, so we don't care, because we're not going to let something else do the match, okay? Okay, the return value can be a Boolean value, in which case it specifies whether all or no unknown overrides should be displayed. Otherwise, it is a list of compiled regular expressions that determine what overrides, what unknown overrides get filtered out, which may be empty. Okay. Actually, maybe we don't even want to do that. The way we had that might actually have been a nice way to go. All or none. Let's take that all back. I just thought of something. Because I think it was a little nicer that way. Because based on the name, this really is that. It's either match everything or match nothing. But the problem is that it's being matched against a list that's too liberal. So def filter unknown package content. And for this, we would need a list of package files, unknown overrides, and ignore and patterns. Return package files. And this says, given a list of the entire unpacked contents of a package and a list of overrides that are known to be unknown, return back a filtered copy of the package contents in which the items from the unknown overrides that match the pattern provided are removed from the package files, from the file list, like so. Okay. So right now it's doing that. We would zank this information over to here. I gotta close that thing. Okay. So it's already gonna get that. So now we can copy this over to here and say that package files is actually this, and the arguments we're going to pass it are the list of unpacked files, the list of unknown overrides, and the thing that we just added to the end, whose name I already forget, which is ignore patterns. That's what that is going to be. So now, based on that, this report should come back now. Unless I broke it because I did not import that particular item. So let's do that, I suppose. So we don't need that anymore, I don't think, because we're not the ones doing that. Oh, sorry, I'm in the wrong file. Of course I do need that. Over here is where I should have imported the stupid thing. That, and from .core import that. Okay. Reload. Now the override report should go back to the way that it used to work. Oh, now package info. Oh. Yeah, don't be. Package files is not none, then package files is equal to R for R in package files. And this should be patterns like this. I mean, that's not right, but so I guess, yeah. But we want to do that a little bit differently. That should be a package file set. So filtered is equal to sorry, I guess just do it this way. Filtered is equal to R for R in unknown overrides, if not any. pattern, like so. And let's just go ahead and print filtered like this. Okay, so if we came to the override report, all the content comes back like so, and the list of filtered files is just nothing anywhere ever. Let's tweak this code just slightly. If filtered, print filtered. Okay, so if we do it now, we don't see anything because absolutely nothing is filtered, right? Because we said ignore unknown overrides is what, true? Set to true to disable this functionality completely. Okay, well that might be backwards. What if we set this to false and do it? Now we're seeing some stuff. So I think the sense of that is backwards now. The sense of the one up here. Huh. Well, you know what? Let's do this. Print patterns. That doesn't really help, does it? Because that's not going to be an interesting pattern per se. We have hit the 2-hour mark on this stream, but I really want to crack this particular nut. Empty, 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 empty. Because it's set to false, but it is doing nothing. Which is okay. So that is what we expect in that case. When that value is false, that list should be a list with nothing in it, which is what we expect. And because there's nothing in it, nothing is filtered. So all of the unknown overrides, that text file, and all the Git files still appear here, plus the sample.md in that package. If this is set to true, it should return. What did I say here? This is true to disable this functionality completely, which means all unknown files go away. And in that case, when we do this, and we maybe clear the console here, like this, we don't see anything happening. Let's close this thing for now. Well, let's take that off so we can maybe. Oh, let's do this maybe. Okay. That. There is an object in there. Oh, because I think I see. Again, we've reversed the sense of what we're doing. We're picking unknown overrides to throw away. We're not trying to redact. Okay, so let us switch this back to false. Let us save and reload that. Now, if we come to the override report and hit the key, that's set to false, so nothing is filtered, everything looks the way that it should. If this is set to true, then all unknown overrides should go away. So when we hit that, the report stays the same, but now we can see there's an item and it's discarded sample, all of the Git hooks in sample.md. So if we were actually filtering the list, this would do what we want with that filtered list. And if we took this part out and put this part back in, if we did it one more time, we'd have to do that. We don't see anything in here. Why is that the case? Oh, go away. Okay. because now it's not doing anything. Oh, because it's still commented out like an idiot. I forgot I did that part. Okay. An empty list? Yeah, of course it's filtering nothing. There. Now it's only filtering. There's multiple patterns and it's only filtering Git files and nothing else. So with all of that, we could say this: if package files is none, return package files, and otherwise do this. Create a new set of files that is unknown overrides with any that match that pattern thrown away, and then we return package files minus filtered to redact away any of the ones that we know we don't want. That still seems to work. So now if I do this, sample.txt is still there. Sample.txt is still there. Sample.md is still there, but all these other ones are gone now. The downside being there are 24 unpacked resources not in the source package, because they're also not redacted from the package info over there, which would tend to indicate that the packages should also do the same thing. In order to be able to tell, and this is that thing I mentioned previously. Now, if I comment that out and set this to false, then when I hit this, all of the things are still there. And if I set this to true, then all of them are just gone. But if you hover, you still see that. So this is something to think about. It's still telling you what the full count of files that are there, even if it's not necessarily showing them to you. And I guess what we might also want is to do that same thing in the bulk diff that we're doing in the override report, which is we need to somehow filter that list. So we're going to copy that and go bulk diff report thread. I think this works the same way for both of them. It calls diff packages to do its business. And we could say that. And then perform diff and what we would pass in is as a last item ignore patterns, which I believe was the same in both of these, right? It was ignore patterns there and it was ignore patterns here. Yes, so let's get rid of that file for now. And in the diff report, where we have perform diff, it should also be comma ignore patterns like so. So that should still work. Package files equals unpacked content. Now, what did we do over here? We did this, which also requires the list of unknown override files. So in that case, we would pull that out and put it here instead. And if those aren't going to be lined up, then we're not going to line those up either, I don't think. Because that'll just look dumb. And then we can do the same thing to this. So now that list of content is filtered. That should be all that it was needed there, right? Oh yeah, we don't need this thing anymore in here either. Okay. Because that's going to do the same thing as that. So now with that seemingly working. If we were in the override diff report for this one package, we hover, we see there's 24 unpacked resources not in the source package. Hit the key, and we realize we did not put this in here. Whoopsie doodle, like so. Reload that. Okay, now all we get in here is README because we turned this off. We set it to false when we do it. We get all of the files, and if we do that and this, then we get that. That is perfect. And bulk diff all packages. We have it set to that, so in test package, I can just do this, I suppose. Only sample.md is in there, and again, if we do a couple of undos in here, that should be all of them in because I set that to false, and true, and perfect, absolutely perfect. That is doing what we want. So the only thing to concern ourselves with is this notion that it tells you how many unpacked resources there are, even if it doesn't show you all of them. But I'm tempted to say that's not a big deal for now. We could pull that information later if we wanted to. That has gotten us this. So I guess we're going to work on the create override stuff in the next stream, perhaps. Again, unless I manage to find time to do it in the next 2 weeks if the next stream doesn't happen. This stream has gone on pretty long, but we have got some nice stuff working here. That is just a lot nicer, I think, as an option. I can check this code in and push it up to my other machine and see how it responds there. But that shall be the end of this live stream. If you have been, thank you so much for watching. If you would like to see these live, you can subscribe to the channel, and if you use the bell notification icon, you should be notified when I'm going live. And you can also, if you're subscribed, you can see when I've scheduled the next live stream and click to be reminded when it's happening. Those live streams happen Tuesdays at 8 p.m. PST, roughly for 2 hours, sometimes a little longer like today, sometimes a little shorter. And sometimes the stream doesn't happen if life intrudes, which may happen next week because, as I said at the top of the video, it is my anniversary. Now, if you'd like a video with all of the fumbling cut out like what we just did so that you can just see stuff happening without seeing all of the error tracing, I have another channel linked down in the description below that posts videos every Monday at 9 a.m. PST. And on this channel and on that channel, if you have any questions or comments on anything in any of the videos or any of the live streams, you can drop those down in the comment section below any video, or you can hit me on Twitter at OdatNurd with those questions. And if you have any suggestions for topics you'd like me to cover in any video or in a live stream, you may do that in those locations as well. And of course, if you're in the live stream, feel free to pop in, say hi, and I will gladly, especially in the case of like tonight, get away from what I'm working to try to answer your question or work through something. Sometimes I know the answer to something. Sometimes I need to look into it, and that could be instructional as well. But until that next live stream, whenever it happens, this is OdatNurd asking you, dear viewer, to please have a sublime day.